Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and I'm joined today by the most based podcaster of all time, Johnny O.
How's it going?
What's up, man?
How'd I get that title from you?
It came to me today.
Yeah. Nice.
I just was thinking about how based we are and how we've never said anything wrong or controversial on this podcast. And
okay. Well, here's
cool.
Here's really based. That's true. We do never. Yeah. Okay. Here's something based though. I'm gonna come in defending a multi-millionaire. That's what I'm coming in hot with today.
Oh my god. Well, it was a good run with that title.
I'm still on my Mr. Beast from a couple days ago. Okay.
Oh my god.
I know. Hopefully
that's
that's
so funny because to you, yeah, that was a couple days ago. I was just editing that
Yeah, so I found out a little bit more about it. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say you said something that made me think but something you said where you were like, well, no one should have to do game shows for money that they're going to live off of, blah, 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 right? And they shouldn't. I mean, it's fun. But it's fun too. I mean, like I always wanted to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But
another hot take is it's not torture to do these game shows.
Well, okay. What about like Survivor? You know, where they're literally going to a deserted island. Couldn't any of those people be like, they literally didn't give us food, water, or shelter?
Yeah.
You know, and we had a chance to win money. We weren't even like guaranteed money. So I'm just like, I'm becoming more and more against this guy. And the reason that I'm bringing this up, and it's got me heated again.
Wait a minute. Yes. You're against Mr. Beast?
No, I'm pro Mr. Beast. I'm Mr. Beast's biggest fan now.
Okay. All right.
I'm a Mr. Beast stan. Okay.
Genuinely? Okay. I know two things about Mr. Beast.
Oh, okay.
What you told me, and apparently he has like a trans employee that he defends to a bunch of internet weirdos. And so he's all right in my book.
Dude, I don't even know if you want to go that far, because I feel like maybe that person like has done weird stuff. I like barely know about any of this Mr. Beast stuff, but I've like barely heard enough of it to know that maybe that the trans person is not the best person. But I don't know, right? That could just be the internet. That's the fun of the internet. You just never know.
Okay. If they're a bad person, that's one thing. But like if people are just coming at them for being trans, then hell yeah, Mr. Beast, protect your people.
Definitely. Okay. Mr. Beast paid this guy $50,000 more for damages. So he got $150,000 for like 10 days. I'm just jealous is what it really is. There's nothing else to it. I'm just jealous.
Everyone else who's ever done a Mr. Beast challenge is going to come out of the woodwork now. Like, that messed me up, dude.
Yeah, well, there are like other things now that could be like very, very like, you know, shady, but there are people that have like worked for him and like done interviews that I know where it's like, oh, he took an idea without paying. Right, Mr. Beast is probably also a piece of shit, but the kids are soft is the bigger story here.
Okay, yeah, I can get behind both of those things being right. I don't know, you know, but like while we're conjecturing, it sounds like a fun place to land.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you have going on?
Like this week?
Yeah. Yeah, what you been up to? How was your weekend?
Well, when we got done talking, I pretty much edited, and that was about it.
Nice.
How about you?
Pretty good. I actually just got back from a tennis match with my buddy Steve, who always kicks my ass, and every single time I think I'm gonna get him. And we always have really close games, but I can just never, ever close out a game. It's insane how much I choke all of these games away. So today he beat me 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, which is not my best showing. If there's any tennis fans that are listeners, I've gotten really into tennis lately, so feel free to write in.
If there's any Evangelion fans, I've become obsessed with Evangelion lately, and John won't let me talk about it on the pod.
I don't even know what that is.
You won't let me tell you what it is.
What is it? It sounds like a Christian thing.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Like, all of the stuff in it is like, there's so much Christian imagery stolen. Like, there's literally things called angels and Adam and Lilith, and there's the Dead Sea Scrolls come up. It's all biblical references, and people have asked the creator, hey, what's that all mean? What's that about? Does it like represent something? And he's like, no, Bible just sounds cool.
Well, it's also called Evangelion, and like evangelical is obviously a very,
yes.
It's like
that means like the gospel.
Yeah.
But instead,
okay,
it's
so
just
what
big
is
robots.
this? You're just telling me, okay, big robots. Okay.
But it's not big robots at the same time. Big robots is like what draws you in, but really it's just like a
So what, is it a show?
It's a show, and then there's a movie, and then there's like reboot movies.
Okay. You're not
going to watch it.
You're not selling it very
Why would
much.
I sell it to you?
I mean, you have an audience here also.
Okay, well, I don't know, man.
I don't know. I'm not sold.
I discovered something important. I feel like I was just like reawakened to like the X-Men for the first time again, and it's pretty cool, but like it's so hard to explain or describe without spoiling it, and also it's one of those things that kind of doesn't make sense. It's just a vibe. But I love it.
If you guys are wondering why Zach failed as a salesman, you're figuring it out. Well, maybe someone will
I'm not trying to sell it.
I know.
I'm just gushing and like answering the question honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds cool.
Yeah. So if it comes up naturally 100 more times in the show, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's what this is about." He's just fixating on something.
Okay. I like it. All right. Anything else? Are we ready?
Nope, that's it. I think that was the best intro we've ever done.
Probably.
Okay. Let's.
Oh my gosh, the Fantasy Football League, though. We did have our draft.
Oh, we did.
Between the episode that we recorded 2 days ago and the one right now, we did have our draft. And boy, I'm sorry to say to the listeners, but I think I'm going to have a pretty good season this year.
I don't want to brag, but I'm projected to score the most points.
Yeah, well, projections are king.
Says someone who's not projected many points. The guy who had the first pick, Jacob, a listener on the pod, and he messaged me.
Don't hate, Zach. No hating.
I'm not hating. I'm letting you know something you don't know.
Okay.
He messaged me and said that for weeks he had it in his head that he was going to draft CMC, and then like a few hours before the draft he decided he wanted Jalen Hurts, and that was like the best thing for me because I was just talking about how I wanted CMC and I got him. Dude,
it was also the best thing for me because I got CD Lamb at number 5, which was a pretty good pick. I was happy with that.
Happily taken it too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? To his credit, Jalen Hurts will probably be the highest scoring player in fantasy. Yeah.
It's hard to dispute that.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks get so many points, and he can rush.
And he rushes for so many touchdowns.
He's got 3 all pros to throw to.
Yeah. Okay. Good season.
Good stuff.
Start to the season. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Better Business Bureau, take it away.
But first, a word from our sponsor, Mr. Beast.
Every business says they're better, but the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
All right, and we're back. Thank you, Mr. Beast.
Is that a new thing that we're doing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's funny. I like that.
Well, it hasn't worked out the last few weeks because we haven't had
that
someone
Mr.
good
Beast
to plug.
One, that was perfect.
Thank you. You know, he has enough money. He can advertise on here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It seems like he could pay us for it, but
God knows he throws it away for less. All right. Okay. Getting into Ultimate Spider-Man issue 129. This one is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Stuart Immonen.
It happens once an episode, folks.
That it does. It hasn't recently, but...
No, how's that for a throwback?
Yeah, we reserve the right for it to happen once an episode.
You know what? That reminds me, I wanted to look something up here. We can do it live. I was going to look up what an 80th wedding anniversary is called, because this is our 80th episode, and we're starting this ultimatum thing. So I thought, how cool would it be if I looked up what the 80th anniversary thing is, and it happened to have something that we could put into this ultimatum thing?
Dude, how many people live to their 80th wedding anniversary?
I don't know. Probably got married pretty young.
That's a damn child marriage.
Oak. Does that have anything to do with Ultimatum? Oak?
You know, let's see if we can work it in.
Okay. That sounds good.
At some point, we're just going to say Oak and go crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Inked by Wade Von Grawbadger, colored by Justin Ponzer, and lettered by Corey Petit. Wait, so is that like you plant an oak tree that neither of you are going to live to see grow, or you just give them a piece of wood?
You know what, dude? That's a good question. It says, what is the gift for 80 years of marriage? And someone said oak anniversary, and then their answer was, oak seems like the perfect material to celebrate an 80-year marriage. Why?
Sturdy.
And it looks like ruby red oak. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe sturdiness. That's pretty good.
I bet no one has ever done that in history. This is something the internet made up.
And this is like ruby, it says, is a... So, like... Yeah, dude, I think this is bullshit. All right. Carry on. Maybe we'll work it in.
Okay. So we open on Johnny Storm on a date with the same blonde who used him for publicity. Do we remember that, John?
Yes, I do remember that.
This chick sucks. And he says he wanted to try again to see if they could have a genuine connection. But she just keeps talking about her publicist and how good it will be for them to be seen together in the press.
She talks about their queue, like their rating system. Okay. Now that just ever so vaguely rings a bell to me that is like actually a thing. Was that a 90s thing or something?
I want to say it was like a 2010 thing. Like when this issue came out, that was probably...
I'm just trying to think where
poppin'.
I like heard that. Where else would I have heard somebody's like Q rating? I don't know.
I thought about putting that in my notes and I didn't because I was like, no one is going to know what that means. And so she leaves to use the bathroom and Johnny calls Peter Parker to come save him. And this is fun. Peter is in his Spidey suit, sitting on his couch, making out with Mary Jane when he gets the call. And this is just good fun, this whole page. Peter and MJ are just palling around with Johnny.
They're goofing.
Oh, they are in such a silly mood. Peter says, hey, it's Johnny Storm. And MJ goes, oh, of the world-famous Fantastic Four? And Peter's like, yeah, same one. And she goes, never heard of him. And Peter tells MJ he's on a date with a famous pop star. And John, this just grinded my gear ever so slightly because he never says the name of the pop star, but Mary Jane definitely knows who he's talking about.
He says the name.
No, Johnny says the name to Peter.
Yeah, he says, I'm on a date with Brittany Amber Fox.
So I guess maybe Mary Jane heard that through the phone that's not on speaker.
Oh, you're right. Because then Peter tells MJ that he's on a date with a famous pop star.
Yeah,
And
that could
she
be any of
does-
them.
But you know, she might also just be saying what she's saying
Just for fun.
about anyone. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
true. So MJ holds her nose and says, "Aw, boo-hoo." And then she goes, "Tell him she's a skank." And Peter says into the phone, "MJ wished you all the best." And she goes, "Tell him she makes my skin crawl." And Peter tells Johnny, "And she thinks you'll make a cute couple." It's just one of those fun things where it's like she's antagonizing and he's just jokingly changing her words to the exact opposite.
Yeah.
They're joshing.
They're having fun.
Johnny begs Peter to call his phone in like 5 minutes and just say anything so he can, leave the date. And Peter says, "You need to find a nice girl." And MJ says, "I'm taken." And at this point, I'm like, okay, you guys, you're being that couple.
They are.
They are, but it's fun.
They're insufferable.
And they hang up and MJ asks Peter where Aunt May is. And Peter says she's meeting with the vice principal to try and get Gwen back into school now that she's not dead anymore. And Mary Jane rolls her eyes and says, "That should be interesting." John, I gotta ask, if a student died and then came back to life and wanted to get re-enrolled at the school, would that be the vice principal's business, or would it maybe go up to like the principal? I feel like it's weird they said they're talking to the vice principal.
That would probably be a group decision if a child died and then came back to life. I think a lot of people might be involved in that.
That's fair. Well, not here. So we see the vice principal talking to Aunt May, and
just for reference, the vice principal looks exactly like Doc Ock if he gains like 50 pounds.
I'm trying to think of what actor he looks like, but I can't place it.
It's Doc Ock. He looks like Doc Ock, exactly.
Maybe like the dad from Young Sheldon.
Oh, okay. I can sort of see that.
I've never watched it, but just based off the memes, that's like this guy's energy.
Yep. I'm trying to think what else that guy's in. He's a famous guy.
I know he's a famous guy. I can't think of anything. Okay, this felt to me like a Always Sunny bit. So he's reading this letter that Aunt May handed him, and he goes, "So this is actually a letter from a doctor who works for SHIELD, the World Peacekeeping Task Force." And she's like, "Yeah." And he says, "Saying that Gwen Stacy, who we were told had died, is now not dead and is under your foster care." And she's like, "Uh-huh." And he's like, "And here's a letter of recommendation from the billionaire superhero Tony Stark." And she's like, "Yep." And he's like, "What am I supposed to do with this? How do you even know Tony Stark?" And May says that he should let Gwen back into class so that she can have a normal life. And he snaps and says there's nothing normal about this school. Spider-Man, mutants, the Green Goblin, they're probably going to shut the whole school down. And now you come here with a girl back from the dead and a note from Iron Man. And the vice principal starts thinking, and he's like, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Yeah, this was silly of Aunt May.
There had to have been a better way to get her into school. She didn't even have to go back to the same school.
Yeah. And they could have had another family do this. Or something. They could have had Tony Stark come and do it. Like,
for real. Oh, they're going to shut down the school? Hey, here's some money from Tony Stark. You're now like a private school.
And it doesn't help that the principal is Doc Ock's brother. Vice principal. It's Brock Octopus.
That's it. How funny would it be if the whole series they just had a vice principal Octavius and Peter never realized it?
That'd be awesome.
Okay, so he's thinking about Spider-Man now, and Aunt May's like, time to change the subject. This has nothing to do with Spider-Man. Gwen's a good girl, and her father was a police officer, and she deserves a second chance. As if she didn't stick a knife in another kid's belly earlier in the year. She's a good girl.
She is. Don't hate.
We know that, but this vice principal would know two things about Gwen Stacy. She died, and before she died, she brought a knife to school.
She got suspended, yeah.
Okay, and so the vice principal says, sure. And we're not really sure if that's like a sure she can go here, or if he's like still thinking about something.
Oh, I think he's just like, sure, you know. He's
okay.
Like, he's thinking about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's like, sure, this is what you're talking about, you know.
Yeah. And we cut back to Johnny Storm on his date from hell, and Peter calls Johnny and starts to invite him to hang out over the weekend. And Johnny abruptly screams, "Oh my God, Dr. Doom is back? Where?" And this whole issue, John, just feels like a sitcom to me. Like, it feels like there should be laugh tracks behind these characters.
I'm gonna save a very specific thought I have about that for a couple pages here, because I don't want to
rain on my parade.
No. I was trying to think of a non-vulgar way to be like, I don't want to like blow my load too early, you know. but I couldn't think of one. I couldn't think of a non-vulgar way to say it. But that's what. So I'm gonna wait a little bit here.
Rocks on.
I'm gonna let.
Hey,
I'm gonna
more like
rocks on.
Rocks off.
Yeah. Well, I'll get my rocks off here in a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So Peter's still talking calmly on the phone, and he invites him to, hang out. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about Kitty Pryde, me, MJ, maybe a couple of others." And this is interesting. We see MJ scowl at him in the background, because that's the order he goes in. He says, I'm thinking Kitty Pryde, me, and at that point, she's already seeing red.
That's interesting. I didn't notice that at all. Yeah. Well, Peter's obviously still into her. I mean,
why wouldn't he be?
I mean, I agree. And she's obviously still into him. It's not right what she's doing to Kong.
We're kidding, listeners. This is that patented sarcasm that doesn't come through on the podcast.
I'm only sort of kidding.
Look, I love Kitty. Like, if he had never gotten back with MJ and was still with Kitty, I don't think I'd dislike this series at all. But that's not what's happening. So Johnny says, "I gotta go," and flames on and flies away from his date. And as he flies away, he sees an explosion and spots the Vulture flying with a duffel bag in hand. And Johnny starts chasing him through the air, but the Vulture throws little bombs at him that are kind of similar to the Green Goblin bombs in the movies. And Johnny gets blown through a window, which has got to be one of the worst ways to get blown.
That's true.
And he gets back to chasing the Vulture, and while Vulture has his head turned to taunt Johnny, Jessica Drew swings in and kicks him in the fucking face. And she says, "Hey, I'm swinging here. And she easily rips his jetpack off his back and webs him to the side of a building, quipping the whole time. And Johnny is smitten. He's making goo-goo eyes. His jaw's dropped.
This comic could say something really interesting. You know that like Black Mirror episode a couple of years ago where the guys like went into a video game and had sex with each other, and they Do you have any idea what I'm talking about right now? Like,
So I liked Black Mirror. I've pretty much only seen the episodes you recommended me.
okay.
I don't know why I didn't watch more.
Well, there's an episode in it where
Wait, stop me. I think I've seen this one.
it's got.
Do these guys go into a video game and have sex with each other?
Well, that's what I just said starting it. So have you actually seen it, or are you just repeating what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, you're just repeating what I'm saying.
Yes, okay, I'm just repeating.
Okay.
Continue.
So, well, it's Anthony Mackie, so the new Captain America, the Falcon Captain America, and it's I don't remember his name, but he played Black Manta in Aquaman, if you can picture that.
I'm not a DC guy, John.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're like best friends, right? And then there's like a VR video game, and one of them is like a hot chick, and one of them is like a buff dude, and they have sex with each other, as people would do in that type of video game. Black Mirror's crazy, right? Having sex in a video game. And the episode like tries to say something interesting about like, well, are they potentially like gay because they specifically like doing that with each other? Like even when they do that with like random people, it's not the same, and when they're in different bodies, it's not the same, and blah 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 blah, right? And it doesn't do a very good job of it, and it's not, and I feel like this issue, boy, if I were Johnny Storm, I might have like some questions after I found out that this was like Peter Parker, actual like a clone of Peter Parker, just in a woman. That definitely would raise some questions.
John, are you saying you picked up some queer subtext here? I never realized it.
Well, but the thing is, Johnny Storm wanted to realize it, right? There'd be no reason for him not to think that this is just like a Spider Woman, Like, I'm saying, if he like, I don't know, it'd be interesting. Let's see if they pull off this thread.
He doesn't know that she's literally a clone of his homie.
No, so
but she's acting exactly like his homie. I mean, she's quipping
very yeah,
she's
dude.
quipping
Girls
like Peter.
Make jokes also, Zach. I know that's crazy to think about. Girls can be funny too. And he's like gonna get a crush on her, and then he's gonna find out she's like a clone of his best friend Peter. I'm just saying that's interesting. That could be a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an interesting use for both of these characters, and it's fun because there's been decades of like people shipping Peter Parker and Johnny Storm. I once saw people on Twitter talking about, well, Peter Parker's bisexual, and I was like, really? Is he? What guy would he possibly be? And then I was like, oh, okay, Johnny Storm. That's what they're saying. Got it. Okay.
I'm not sure that I appreciate this attitude that's not 2 episodes in a row where you can't just have a guy best friend. Okay.
No,
Charles
can.
and Magneto are smiling at each other. They must be gay. Johnny Storm and Peter are best bros. There must be some homosexual subtext. Can't you just have a bro?
Yeah, absolutely can. It's just those 4 people don't.
Okay. Okay.
To be clear, I see what people want to read into the Spider-Man Human Torch part of it. I don't necessarily think that's on the page. I think it's intended for us, at least definitely in Claremont, that Magneto and Charles have had sex, for sure. Those men are in love.
Okay.
All right.
It's decided.
I have spoken. All right. Anyways, back to the fun story. So, she beats the shit out of Vulture and webs him to the wall. And Johnny just like flies up to her and is like, hi. And she just says, hey, Johnny, without even looking at him. And he says, have we met? And Jessica says, kinda. And he asks where. And she ignores him and tells some cops on horses that she has a bad guy to drop off. And he's like, seriously, how do we know each other? And she goes, don't worry about it, and starts to swing away. And John, he does what every smart romantic guy does when a woman says, don't worry about it, leave me alone, starts walking away, and he follows her and he keeps asking her questions, you know, like a true Romeo.
Girls love a persistent fella.
They like the chase. And boy, does he give her a chase. He's like flying around New York, following her, and he's like, hey, how do we know each other?
I mean, dude, it's not like he's like that weird. I think he should follow her around.
It's played to be funny. He's not like
she like
creeping her out.
No, all these people, when they see another superhero, they chase them around until they like talk, you know.
That's true. That's just what you do.
Superhero 101.
Yeah, it's like dogs sniffing each other's butts at the dog park. And she's like, crap. We have a mutual friend. And Johnny's like, mutual friend? And they're just swinging and flying and having this conversation. He's like, are you friends with you-know-who? You've got the same powers as him. You know who I'm talking about? And she's like, oh my God, I gotta go. And he goes, are you Spider-Man's cousin or something? And she goes, kinda, and just swings off. And he yells, where are you going? And then he turns around and looks at the fourth wall, cheeses, and says, now that's girlfriend material. John, we have never been in a sitcom as much as we are in a sitcom this issue.
Okay. Well, let's turn the page, because we're on the page where I had a thought, Zach. Okay. And here's my thought. Do you want to? You can set the scene. Set the scene with what's happening here.
Okay, I'm gonna try and pick up on what you're putting down. So he just said, "Now that's girlfriend material."
No. It's just okay. I'll set the scene. Okay, because I feel like you're thinking I'm going to say something else. So they're all of the friends are meeting at the Parker household. Kong and Kitty are there. They're in a great mood. You know, Peter and MJ and Gwen are there. It just looks, we've had so much fun this whole episode. Everyone's just having the best time. Johnny Storm's about to get himself a nice Peter Parker girlfriend. And I just had this thought. I go, oh my God, something terrible is about to happen. This is just, everyone's just, like, I actually forgot about that. I forgot for a brief time that Peter Parker was not allowed to be happy. And he was, and life's good, huh? And Brock said it. He told us, life's too good, man. Like, and you can just tell. And obviously we know Ultimatum is coming, you know, but even if I didn't know Ultimatum was coming, as soon as I turned this page, I was like, disaster is about to strike for all of these teens. They're just having too much fun, man.
And you don't even know what Ultimatum is yet. As far as you know, it could be everyone's finest hour.
I really don't know what it is. When we read the first issue that we'll get into, I mean, I had no idea what was going on.
They kick Jonathan Majors Kang's ass and then all go out for shawarma.
Yeah, but I was just like, oh man. Well, that's how I knew Ultimatum was going to be like a bad thing, is I was like, oh, something awful's coming, and we're about to do Ultimatum. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the next day, and Kitty and Kong arrive at Peter's house to pick up him, MJ, and Gwen for a night on the town. And this is the funny part. So Johnny Storm just said, wow, she's girlfriend material. And then we immediately see Kitty, Gwen, MJ, and Peter Parker. Arguably girlfriend material. 1 through 4 for Johnny Storm. I mean, take your pick, man.
No, it's not. I'm not.
That's what I thought you were going for. I was like, what is John possibly saying on the heels of the page turn? Okay, so they're all meeting up, and Peter introduces Gwen to Kitty, which kind of made me realize, oh yeah, they haven't met. And says, Kong, you remember Gwen. And Kong and Gwen awkwardly tell each other that they look great, and Gwen says that he lost weight. And Kong is surprised that she even remembers him. And I'm like, this just is...
And Kitty is like clutching him. She's like defending her territory.
And they walk up holding hands.
I know.
I think they're like... They might not have said they're together, but they're like together at this point.
Oh, definitely. I think Brian Michael Bendis likes putting himself in positions where holding hands with Kitty Pryde's dangling over him, you know.
Yeah,
he's the hero of this story.
There are worse things that writers have had their self-inserts do to Kitty Pryde, so I'm fine with it.
Oh, gosh.
Joss Whedon once shot her into space in a bullet, so no other writer could ever touch her besides him.
Weird.
Very. Yeah, and so Gwen and Kong interact, and they have a very different relationship than like they used to when she was alive. Do you remember when they would always just like be calling each other slurs in class? And
well, now Kong is cool.
Now Kong is cool, and Gwen lost her knife,
and she died. She's kind of been through a lot.
Yeah. So everyone's good friends, and they're all going to go out for a night on the town and have fun.
It's going to be awesome.
It's great.
It's so much fun.
We've been waiting for this for so long.
Nothing bad could ever happen.
Aunt May sees the kids off and gives Peter some money and says, "It looks like rain. If it rains, take shelter immediately. Have a good time." And as soon as the kids leave, some cops walk up to May on her porch and say that she's under arrest. And she asks what for, and they say, "For you and your nephew's relationship to Spider-Man." And they cuff her and start walking her to a cop car as it begins to rain.
Oh my gosh. And that's not even that bad. What if
that was all Ultimatum was? Is it rains and Aunt May gets arrested?
Aunt May's elbow swells when it rains. She's not going to be able to play tennis this week.
What if Peter's all worried about her in prison, and then he like goes to bail her out, and she's become like the boss of the prison yard in like 8 hours? That's a story I want to read.
That's me too. How was it? What did we think? What's our rating system? Out of potential girlfriends for Johnny Storm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eligible bachelorettes for Mr. Storm. You know what, dude? I'm gonna do it.
No, don't.
This is a 10 out of 10.
No, it's not.
I love this. I was cheesing the whole time. Nothing bad happens to anyone except for the very, very end. When I think about like moments in this whole series that just make me smile, that interaction between him and Jessica always makes me smile. It's a fun issue. It's sweet. You're gonna wish you had it back in a minute.
I don't know, man. I'm like, I guess it was fun, but
it's all right. Mileage may vary. I'm not saying it's Citizen Kane.
I can't decide. I can't decide what I want to rank it, because I guess I just kind of found it boring. Is that? I'm just waiting.
Is this the load that you were waiting to shoot?
No, that was about how happy they all seemed.
Oh, okay.
That I didn't want to talk about how happy everyone and how, before we got to that specific page. I don't know. I mean, I guess the Jessica Drew stuff is pretty good, and the Johnny Storm stuff, but
the phone call at the beginning.
I guess I just like, I've just seen enough of Peter and MJ. I get it. They're cute. They're fun. And they are. And, same
it's time for him to get a new girlfriend.
It's time for them to stop being teenagers and grow up, dude. When is Gwen going to transform into a big scary monster again? Okay, I want to know what's going to happen with this. Or, just go do something. I don't care about them going to the movies anymore and like making out on the couch. Is that bad?
I mean, I feel like we haven't gotten it in a while, but no, I mean, mileage may vary, and you're gonna get both. You know, you're gonna get the highs and you're gonna get the lows. So,
well, I don't think that this was bad, but I just don't think I can rate it possibly as high as you did, and I'm also probably expecting too much, you know, because like we have just seen all of these different heroes and we're getting into a big storyline, and it's like, okay, let's do one more just like small scale teenagers having a good time story before everything comes crashing down.
You know, okay, that's it. I'm gonna spoil something because you already know, you've done your reading for today, but you know, context on these things matters. So we look so fondly back on the issue where him and Gwen and Mary Jane are all just hanging out in his room right before she dies, and how sweet that moment was, because we have the context of what's right about to happen. That's like the last happy memory for a long time, right?
Yeah.
This is that. You know, this is a fun, light one before things get heavy for a while.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten that it came right here. I genuinely started this issue thinking we were going to be starting Ultimatum, and then I got this instead, and it was like, you know, some moments that I have always kind of found charming, and so it was a fake out even for me.
Yeah. So I knew that Jessica Drew was coming back, and I actually was just thinking, like, gosh, when is she coming back? We're sort of like nearing somewhat of, you know, Zach's got his Jessica Drew action figure. And I guess you aren't going to spoil anything to say if she shows up in Ultimatum or anything, but it'd be kind of a bummer if she just showed up for like one issue, like 3 pages, and then disappeared. Okay, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. You know, it was pretty good. It was a good one.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
A lot of pretty girls for Johnny Storm to choose between, but, you know, he's only got eyes on one.
There's a lot of pretty girls, and that's a great segue.
If they don't have the Parker gene, they're not for him.
God. Can I finish my segue? That's a great segue into Ultimatum 1, which has a very pretty Sue Storm on the cover with way too long of legs to be realistic.
Yeah, those legs go all the way up.
She looks stretchier than Mr. Fantastic.
She could play in the WNBA.
All right. Here we go. Ultimatum #1. Written by Jeff Loeb, art by David Finch, inked by Danny Mickey, colored by Steve Furchow, lettered by RS and Comic Craft.
No, wait. You got to say it like Lightning McQueen.
What?
Steve
say what?
Furchow.
So sorry, listeners. We're gonna hear it all again. Written by Jeff Loeb, art by David Finch, inked by Danny Mickey, colored by Steve Furchow, lettered by RS and Comic Craft, and senior edited by the snake Ralph Macchio himself. And Jeff Loeb, Zach, I recognize that name. He did The Long Halloween by Batman, and then I went and looked it up, and he's done a lot of stuff.
He has done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Some famous, some infamous.
Is it really? Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, he even wrote on like Lost and Heroes, I was seeing. So, yeah. What did he do that's infamous?
Most of his Marvel work. He has spotty reputation at Marvel because he did this, and then he also did Ultimates 3, and he did some other stuff that I haven't read.
Oh yeah, you said Ultimates 3 is no good.
It's really bad.
Okay, right off the bat, we're in. And, dude, Sue Storm's a very pretty lady. If I were Reed Richards, I would try to lock her down also. I'll just say it. You know, we open, Reed Richards is about to propose, and that's a good call. And he's got the ring behind his back, and this adds to, I don't like that he uses his stretchy powers just to do everyday things, because you can hide a ring behind your back without having super stretchy arms.
But instead, he's got it back there like a pool noodle.
He should also really like make himself stronger. You know, theoretically, you could think he can contort his body into anything. So why is he like, give yourself some muscles, man?
He just really wants to be one of those used car sales guys.
That's what he looks like. So Reed is about to propose, and then it kind of cuts off. And elsewhere in the building, the Thing is working out. And elsewhere in the building, Johnny Storm is arguing with his dad about doing more with his life. And the implication is that they've had this conversation before. And I don't think that's fair to Johnny Storm, because he's like a superhero. So seems like unrealistic expectations from his dad.
He's like a superhero, and he's 17, and he was just on a date with a pop star.
Yeah. Give him a break a little bit. What is the age of Reed Richards and Sue Storm?
Dude, I've even read a good bit of Fantastic Four, Ultimate Fantastic Four, and I could have sworn they were like in their early to mid 20s. Like, they're not as old as they normally should be, but they're like, I thought they were older than Peter and his friends. They're like 18. It's absurd.
These guys, Reed and Sue, are like 18?
It makes no sense. That. Everything you read makes so much more sense if you just tell yourself they're like 25.
Yeah. Well, that's what I assumed. And then Johnny's like a younger brother who's like, 8 years is kind of a long age gap, but it's not that long.
Yeah. That's how I choose to believe this makes sense.
You know, Zach, when I was getting ready to read this, I clicked on like something called like Run Up to Ultimatum. It was like a 36 issue like book where it like went through each character. And it specifically said the Hulk kills Peter Parker's parents, and Peter is led to believe that they died in a plane crash his entire life. And I just that's just not true. We've seen the video. I know we did this last week.
But it
annoys me. That's really frustrating to me that they couldn't think of something better than that. Just have him do it when Peter's not a baby. He's 8 years old and they come and pick him up, right? Why does he have to be a baby?
Why does he need to be there? Say he's 8 years old and he's at a babysitter's house.
So they can have that one panel of him looking up at the Hulk. That's like the only
remember
reason.
That. Yeah.
You wouldn't remember that if you're a baby.
If you're 8 years old.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. They wouldn't have needed, but that's what I'm saying. They don't need him there. They only wanted him there as a baby so they could get that one panel of him looking up, which is totally unnecessary.
Dude, you know what that whole retcon and issue reminds me of? Is like that video that was going around a few years ago where it's like impersonating Google results. And the lady says, vaccines cause autism. And the guy's like, all right, I found 10 million scholarly articles that says it doesn't, and I found one that says it does. And she grabs it and is like, I knew it. That's us like, okay, we found 10 million reasons why Peter's parents died, definitely somehow involving the Venom stuff when he was like 8. And they're like, well, we found one story that says he died as...
because Eddie Brock was also... Yeah, dude. Okay.
There's like too many witnesses.
Yeah. Obviously, I can't help but think maybe Brian Michael Bendis got like strong-armed into saying that in some way,
It's interesting that you bring that up because I haven't once, I'm proud of myself, I haven't once yet on this pod blamed editorial for doing things. And that's like my go-to is like whenever there's a comic that I don't like from a writer I do like, I'm like, oh, editorial him over. Of course. I genuinely think that's going to happen coming up in this series. There's going to be something so crazy that you're like, there's no way Bendis thought of that. He was not building up to that.
Well, he's just put so much time and thought and effort into how Peter's parents died, and it always comes up when the Venom stuff comes up, that it seems like he can't have been that thrilled with, dude, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say if we are catching these inconsistencies, Brian Michael Bendis probably knew about it when he was writing it, and he probably wasn't thrilled to be doing it.
He didn't just forget like 3 different story arcs that he had done.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting I wonder if he's ever talked about it. Okay, so that was just the opening scene. Gosh. So elsewhere in the building, oh yeah, we already did that. Then, so we found out where all the Fantastic Four are. By the way, this is all happening at 4:12 p.m. Okay. And then we cut to Tony Stark's mansion, also at 4:12 p.m. Tony's drinking, and Steve thinks that they should go out and patrol rather than just waiting around for trouble. And Thor is training with a Valkyrie, and Hawkeye, Janet, and Hank are all trying on costumes.
Not really, but that's funny.
That's like what it seems like they're doing. Hank Pym's just like trying on his new suit.
They're in their costumes, yeah, and they're just kind of standing around.
They're doing nothing. It's boring. I'm bored. Do you know how hard it is to put my favorite characters of all time on the screen, and I'm bored by all of them?
Well, give it a few more pages. Let's see if anything happens, and then we can give up on this issue.
Okay. Peter, MJ, Kitty, Kong, and Gwen are all headed out to meet up with Johnny Storm. They are wearing pretty closely the clothes that they're wearing in the last issue, which I made sure to double check when we were going through the last pages there. They're obviously drawn in a different style, but I'm going to give it to the writers. They did a good job here. Or the artists.
You know what this kind of reminds me of?
And they're all on the bus or something, and it's still boring. They're just showing us all being boring at 4:12 p.m.
They're on the subway, but this reminds me of the very early team-up issue we got where a friend group pretty close to this was drawn in that anime style and hopped in a car and went into the city. I think it was like instead of Kitty, it was Flash, and Liz Allen was also there. But other than that, it was like these same people, and it was another issue where there was like a not normal artist on it.
Huh.
I don't think that was intentional
Well, I guess
at all,
this
but
isn't.
it's fun to see again.
I guess this isn't our normal artist, but this is probably the team that will do all of Ultimatum, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we see the X-Men, and they're out and about, and they're going to a Broadway show, and they bump into Matt Murdock, who casually walks past them. And I know I've said it a couple times, and I'm not really even meaning to harp on it, but I actually was pretty, upset with just these first, 5 or 6 pages. And I feel like we should judge this one hard. It's a really big storyline, so let's, go in depth on it, and it's just really boring opening up with all of these different characters. I obviously see the point. They want to show us where all of the different people are at 4:12 p.m. But I don't know. I feel like they could pick. They're just none of them are doing anything.
You know there's a reason for it. You don't like it, but you know what they're trying to do here.
I do. Okay. I guess. Okay, here's what. So, all right. All of a sudden, we know where all of the people are, right? And then all of a sudden, it starts storming like crazy and lightning like crazy and raining, and we see all of our different people all kind of look up and be like, "Oh, what was that?" at the same time. Okay, here's what I'm saying. I think that it's better if you almost just don't include any of the scenes setting up for all of these people. It should just like start. Maybe you just open on like one person, right? Like whoever the really main character is going to be, or even anybody else, and then it starts storming, and then you just show everybody else doing what they're doing, like look up, because it's just like too much to be like, here's one page of the Fantastic Four, and then here's one page of all the Ultimates, and then here's one page of Spider-Man and his friends, and one page of the X-Men, and they're all just doing nothing at all. It's like we're seeing the same thing over and over again, you know?
I get what you're saying.
You can disagree with it. It's cool.
Is it exciting watching them walk down the street and talk about their life? No, but I think it's effective than when the storm hits and there wasn't like a cloud in the sky beforehand. There was no indication that like the next page was going to be.
Aunt May knew. She felt it in her elbow.
This comic didn't seem to know.
Okay. So on the next page, it's now 4:13 p.m. and almost like instantaneously, the entire city has been flooded. There's like buildings that are nearly entirely underwater. And to the story's credit, I am very much no longer bored with it. I'm into it. And Reed transforms into a parachute, and Sue force field lifts them up to the roof. And then we see a giant whale crash into the Baxter building that the Thing manages to stop. And he says, "What the F is going on?" And then we see Johnny Storm is completely underwater, kind of struggling. And it looks like Franklin Storm is unconscious. And then we cut to the Ultimates building where Pym has managed to become Giant Man and he's screaming for Janet. Bruce Banner is drowning underwater when the Hulk emerges, and he notices one of the Watchers, and he says, "Why is Big Clock Thing watching Hulk?" And Kitty phases Peter on top of the subway and tells him to go be Spider-Man, and she says that she will look after the gang, and Peter swings off. And they share a flirty little moment. This is what I'm saying when I'm like, both of these two are definitely still into each other. And, you know, that's fine. They're in high school.
Look,
you know?
I think they've got chemistry, but I think they also have self-control. You know, she likes Kong and he likes MJ, and that's it.
Well, that's not it. You know, I mean, that's not it. She also likes Peter. And I think if Peter broke up with MJ, unfortunately, Kong would definitely get kicked to the curb.
Well, I think you're failing to realize that Kong's also writing the book, so that can't happen.
That's true. Brian Michael Bendis has huge stake in Peter and MJ working out in this story. So one of the X-Men, one of the X-Men saves another X-Men. Zach, tell us who these people are. That's another thing. All of the X-Men, I'm like, dude, these aren't the characters. These aren't even the X-Men.
You weren't in the TV show.
Yeah.
So that would be Angel, and he's calling her Allison, so I guess this is Dazzler, but this doesn't look like a normal Dazzler. This is like a punk Dazzler.
They're yelling out like, "Warren, Allison." And I'm just like, I've never heard of X-Men with these names. This, you know.
John, you're basic.
I am. I'm.
Warren Kenneth Worthington III was one of the original 5. Gosh.
Good. Thank you. Is that who Angel is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really rich person name. And I remember from the third one, he's like he's the son of a really rich person.
He's super rich.
That's a really good scene where he's cutting off his wings in the mirror.
Oh, that's a creepy scene.
I mean, yeah, it's a powerful scene, you know?
I love the idea that like Xavier brings in like certain mutants that he doesn't actually care about or like because they're rich. So like whenever you ask how do they have like a plane and an underground bunker and everything, it's like, oh yeah, because Warren Worthington and Emma Frost live here.
Didn't we just decide that they're just like mind controlling the bank?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's more fun.
He's definitely just getting it all under the table.
Unlimited loans.
Yeah. Oh my God. Didn't I send you? I sent you a thing like months ago where I was like joking about Professor X using his powers. Maybe I said it on the pod, and I'm like, X-Men, it's 10:31 and McDonald's won't give me my breakfast. To me, my X-Men, and he's gonna like, use mind control on the McDonald's people to get him a sandwich. Zach, I ordered on the mobile app at 10:25 from McDonald's. Okay. I specifically ordered this. I'm complaining about something. I know that's getting to be standard for this podcast, but listen, I had a doctor's appointment in the morning.
Heroes are dying in New York as John is bitching about a McSandwich.
No, this is so annoying. And it related to my X-Men joke. Okay. I knew I wasn't going to get to McDonald's by 10:30, so I ordered on the mobile app because they make it when the order comes in, right? I'm like, this is smart of me. I'll order breakfast. Awesome. It went through. Okay. So I get to the drive-thru. It's like 10:34. Okay. And I go to order it, and they're like, oh, we can't put that in. It's past 10:30. We can't do that anymore. And I'm like, but I already ordered it. I ordered it at like 10:25 because I knew I wasn't going to be here in time. They said there's nothing they can do. And I'm sorry.
You made your
I'm sorry.
Sandwich and held it hostage.
Dude, that's the stupidest thing I've ever. So I ordered something. I paid for it. You made it, and I can't physically eat my McGriddle because it's like 10:34, and I didn't. And they refunded my $1 sandwich on the app that I was going to get for the deal. Anyway, that's...
maybe a flood that destroys everything wouldn't be so bad.
That's what I was thinking. This society's so
That was the breaking point.
There is that movie that has come up on this pod before that's like a Michael Douglas movie where he like gets to McDonald's at like 10:32 and like causes him to like go on a rampage.
Is it Postal? I've never seen Postal, but it feels like that would be it.
No, that's not what it's called. But I'll look up what it's called. Michael Douglas McDonald's movie. Falling Down. That's what it's called. Okay, we'll get back to it. I just like to build suspense. So Zach was telling us about the different X-Men. And then we're at the Avengers Tower, and Tony saves Cap from drowning.
The Ultimate's mansion.
Oh, my God.
If you get to do it with grammar, I get to do it about what the podcast is actually about.
That's fine. And... we do actually get kind of a fun little juxtaposition of Angel saving whoever the other X-Men is, being like, you're not going to die on me today. And then we immediately see Tony saving Cap. And he's like, you're not, he says the same thing. You're not going to die on me today. And Cap wakes up and he asks who else made it. Dude, this is just primo Cap. Okay. Like, this is a good character moment for Captain America that I always like when, he's always just thinking about other people. That's just a good little thing. As soon as he wakes up, he's like, who else made it? Right? And, okay, it reminds me of this scene in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which I just watched, which is a really good scene. It's after Captain America has already learned about Falcon's, buddy that he lost. And Falcon hands him his papers that show him his Falcon suit and everything. I hope the listeners are following along in their head mentally. I hope everyone's seen this movie as much as I have. And Captain America and Black Widow are looking at the file, and Black Widow's immediately like, oh my God, pararescuing? You did this mission? Wow, that was you? Blah, 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 blah. And the first thing Captain America says is he goes, oh, is this your partner? And it's just such a good moment. I just think it's really good. It's really well written. And it's part of the reason why when I talk about Captain America and he's my favorite character, it's like stuff like that, right? So this was a good moment, Zach. You know I love the Avengers. I did that one on purpose.
I could tell. There was a little bit of hate in the way you pronounced it.
So Tony tells him that he doesn't know who else made it. He says it all happened so fast, so many bodies, hard to tell where anyone is. And then he again says anyone. And I don't know. Are we supposed to read into that? Is there like someone important that he's thinking about, like Pepper or anything? Or
no, I think he's just traumatized.
Okay. So on top of the Baxter building, Sue says she can try to push the water back. And Reed like, but you don't know if you can for sure do it. We should go after Namor. We know that this is him. Did I say that right?
It's Namor, but whatever. Go off. You're doing great.
And she says they don't have time for that. And she pushes all the water back, but she passes out in the process. And it's not looking good. And the Thing climbs up to the top of the Baxter building. And he asks Reed, hey man, can you tell me in 25 words or less what's going on? And Reed screams back, I don't know. And the Thing says, you did it in 3. I didn't think you had it in you. It's a little jokey for the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't read enough Fantastic Four to know if that's good, well-written characterization right there, like with the Captain America, but that seems a little too jokey for the moment.
You know, it does, and all these heroes are always joking in moments that us normal people wouldn't, but you know what this kind of reminds me of is there's like pictures and videos of people like as 9/11's happening in New York, and they're like posing for picnics. Or there'll be like some NYU students drinking in their dorm, and they're like videotaping it out the window, and are like, "Oh, this is crazy. All right, back to spin the bottle." And it's like, I think there's something to be said about some people don't grasp the severity of situations like when they're in them, or it could be like a coping strategy or whatever. Or maybe Jeff Loeb is just a shitty writer. Who knows?
Well, I can see how Reed probably always over-explains stuff. And it's probably, I'm guessing, if I've read a lot of Fantastic Four comics, which I haven't, I'm guessing there's a lot of scenes of them being like, Reed, what's going on? And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And he's stretching all over the place while he's saying every single sentence. And they're like, dude, 5 words or less, right? So
it'd be the same as if someone said this to the doctor.
Yeah. So maybe, I'm just, it's fine. Reed is cradling Sue, and he tells Ben that Sue was able to push the water back, but she won't wake up, and she's barely breathing. And he tells Ben that, dude, I didn't really understand this, so maybe you can explain what he's saying. But Reed yells at Ben that he needs to get her to help. And Ben is like, let me read exactly what he says. Ben says, where? Look around you, Reed. There's nothing but dead. And Reed cuts him off and says, then get Johnny or Dr. Storm to do it. And I can't figure out what sentences they're like finishing of each other's. Like, it seems like none of this, it doesn't make sense.
There's nothing around here but dead people. And then Reed's like, well, then just get one of the other people in our group
to get her to help. Why would they be able to get her to help that the Thing wouldn't be able to?
Because Dr. Storm is like a doctor, he might be able to.
Or maybe Johnny could like fly her somewhere.
I think that's the idea. One of those two things.
Okay. It doesn't.
I mean, he's
really
also
make-
not really thinking. Like
He's not. You're right. That's
he's
actually
the smartest man on Earth, and in this moment, he's like flailing.
Yeah. Okay. That's really what it is. So I'm glad you said that. And Ben tells him. So he says, get Johnny or Dr. Storm to do it. And Ben tells him that he thinks that they might have lost them both. Before Reed kind of shoves Sue into Ben's arms and slinks down the building quickly. I think that Mr. Fantastic... Okay, tell me if other people have had this thought before. I think Mr. Fantastic is a better superhero if he's just the smartest man alive. I hate the stretchy powers. I think it's just like the most un-cinematic power someone could possibly have.
Well, keep in mind they came up with it in like 1961.
Okay, well
it's not meant to be like cinematic. They didn't have like energy photon beams and teleporters and all this.
I mean, they made a girl who could go invisible and make force fields. They made a Human Torch. They made a big rock man. All of those are pretty cool. And Mr. Fantastic, if he were just like insanely smart, is also a very cool power. And him being, I just don't like it. Okay.
Well, that's how he's used most of the time. Writers.
That's what it seems like. I forget that he has these powers until I like see him doing it, because most of the time when we see him, he's just being the smartest man alive.
Yeah. Very few people use Reed Richards like his stretching is like his best attribute. It's just another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. So Reed kind of just storms off. Presumably, I don't know, I thought to go and check on Johnny or Dr. Storm. And at 4:21, we see that Reed is in the Fantastic Four submarine, but he's not going to help them. He's going after Namor. I don't know. This says a little bit about Reed's character, I think.
Definitely.
So Namor tells him, Namor kind of like is expecting him. So he jumps on his submarine. And he says, for someone who positions himself as an intelligent man, you're nothing more than an impetuous child. And after all that just happened, how could I not know you would come for me? So I don't think that this is Namor. Just based on that.
He doesn't seem like he's the guy.
He doesn't. And, right away when they were like, we both know who did this, Namor, blah, 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 I was like, oh man, Namor did this? That seems weird. We haven't heard anything about him.
Well, we're not reading Ultimate Fantastic Four. And also, it's like whenever a water thing happens...
Yeah, it makes sense why they would
the water guy.
Yeah. So Reed yells back that Namor killed them all. And Namor says, I could care less what you think, before he attacks. And he grabs Reed, telling him that he had nothing to do with what happened. And then Reed asks why he should believe him. And Namor says, because of Susan. And he's like, I would never want to hurt Susan. Is he talking about Sue Storm?
Yeah.
You gotta fill me in with the history.
Oh man, this is like the original like bad boy, good boy love triangle in Marvel. So, like, all the way back to the 60s, there was this, like, weird rivalry between Namor and Reed. And everyone's like, I think Namor's a bad guy. But then, like, he would do stuff like, he'd kidnap Sue and they'd have to go rescue her. But, like, while he'd had her, he'd, be, like, treating her like a princess or whatever. And
so
she'd be like, oh,
Bowser.
I don't think he's that bad of a guy. Yeah, he's Bowser, or he's, like, Beast in Beauty and the Beast, or he's the Jacob to Reed's Edward.
Okay. Well, maybe he was the good guy after all.
He's definitely not the bad guy in this moment.
Well, I just mean knowing what we know about future Reed Richards.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So Reed then zaps him. He says he came prepared and he electrocutes him. And while Namor's kind of down on the ground out cold, Reed says to himself, but if it wasn't you, who and why? And I just think that's such a funny thing to do after like knocking unconscious the person that told you it wasn't them.
And you believe them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's funny. He does. If he looked down and he was like, surely it had to be Namor, that makes more sense. But he's like already knocked him out. He's like, if it wasn't Namor, who could it be? Okay, oh well, I guess I'll leave this guy here.
It just really drives home the fact that he didn't like him anyways.
I
It
know.
probably would have shocked him for less.
He was looking for a reason for this to do this. Okay, so we turn the page and we see Latveria. It's a big Doctor Doom mask. This is awesome. Okay. And it says 12:31 Eastern European time, which I did the math. That is 6:30 New York time. So theoretically, if the writers did a little bit of homework, this is happening about 2 hours after our big calamity happened. Doom cannot find anyone in his castle. He's like calling for people. No one's coming to help him. Everyone's gone. So he's storming through the castle. And, you know, I've never seen Doom's castle before. So it's pretty icy in there. And it even looks like some people are like frozen. But like I said, I had never seen Doom's castle before, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then he flies open the doors to his castle, and the entire town is covered with snow, and everyone within vision has been frozen to death.
He actually breaks those doors, and they look like some pretty heavy wood. What kind of wood would you say that is, John?
I would say that looks like a reddish oak, is what that looks like to me.
Yeah. I could go with maybe a cherry oak.
That's definitely cherry oak, actually, now that I see that.
Well,
oh my God! And the 80th anniversary is oak. Who would have thought that would have come back? Great find,
Wow.
Zach.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. Well, you know, all thanks to Lord Doom, really.
Yes. Thank you, Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers.
Who just got the Venom symbiote, too, as we remember in Ultimate Spider-Man. It'd be cool if that came up here. It doesn't.
Dr. Doom got the Venom symbiote?
Remember
oh my gosh, the Beetle went and took it to Latveria.
Yeah. Now, that would have been a good thing to bring into Ultimatum, but they don't.
Interesting. So, did Doom not notice all these frozen people in his castle as he's like storming past to them all?
Man, it must have happened pretty quick. I don't know how he didn't get frozen.
I figure it's his like suit that's keeping him unfrozen.
I would think a metal suit would make you more cold.
Oh my gosh, are we boring you, Zach?
I'm sorry.
He is like, he can see his breath. But it looks to me like he's been calling for servants for a while. Just based on his demeanor. I think this might have happened at the same time that I think he hasn't noticed for 2 hours, is what I think.
He's just been sitting by his fireplace calling to his faithful servant Boris.
Yeah, yes.
He's like, damn it, if I have to get up and come find you, someone's getting beheaded.
Well, it's funny. He throws open the doors to his castle, and he yells, Latveria, who dares? And like, he has been calling for help, and when Dr. Doom calls for help, it is the first person in the city's job that hears him to come and help him. Like, there are no servants. Everyone is on call in Latveria.
That's hilarious.
So, in the X-Men mansion, Wolverine and Cyclops burst into Professor X's room, and Professor X has fallen over out of his chair with screaming. And Cyclops says, Professor, I heard you scream. And Wolverine says, no shit, Cyclops. Everyone in the tri-state area heard him. That's awesome. That's great writing. And Professor tells him that Kurt, Hank, and Allison, they're gone, and millions are dead. And he says, and he's like, you know, kind of hurt. You can tell, like, talking. He says, have to tell them, have to warn them. And we see on the next page, Charles, just kind of a full page of like Professor X's head kind of sending out a message. And we see little different snippets to all of the heroes we've seen this issue. And he says, this is Charles Xavier. Oh, man. This would be a really good time for a Professor X impression. I just don't do one at all.
Mine would just
I can't
be
decide if I want to try or
temples.
not. That's all. Yeah, I'd have to get into it for sure.
All right, listeners, just imagine us holding our temples
I'm
like
definitely
Charles
holding my
Xavier.
temples. What is something? Can you give me some line that he says that I can like hear to try to get the cadence of his speaking down?
Magnus, no, please be reasonable.
Dude, that's really good, actually.
That's his bitch voice.
I know. That's not Patrick Stewart voice. That's definitely the X-Men animated series voice.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I have one. Sorry, listeners.
Wow. All that build up.
I just don't have it. I can't think of it. This is Charles Xavier.
Yeah, he laughs a lot. He's known for that.
This is Charles Xavier. You are going to give me my McMuffin even though it's 10:31 a.m. Okay. He says, this is Charles Xavier. I know what has transpired. Even more terrible. I know how and why. And he will not stop until it is worse. Far worse. We need to ban... One, I can't stand it when people use pronouns when they haven't told us who it is. Bad grammar. You know... Because if I were listening to this message, I'd be like, who? Who is he?
You'd be bored already.
This seems important. You should tell us who it is. Don't leave it to the end. But he's building tension.
I just... God. If Charles Xavier existed in the real world, your brain would constantly be getting hit with barrages of like, hi, Zach. I'm here with Kamala Harris. With your help, if you donate $4.
Dude, that is hilarious. That's definitely what he'd be doing.
Good news. We found a new way to reach the audience.
This is the most important presidential election of our lifetime.
Democracy is on the ballot.
We need you to hope again. And this is nice. He says he will not stop until it's worse, far worse. We need to band together, put any differences aside for the battle to come. I'm sending you my X-Men, what's left of them. They will have the coordinates, but here is a mental image of where you must go. And I promise you, Zach, all issue, I've been wondering who did this. I've been like, who would do this? It's not Namor. I can't think of who would do this. And then when he said, I'm sending you a mental image, I go, oh, it's the Savage Land. He's going to say, it's going to be Magneto. We're going to the Savage Land. The Savage Land has been teased, and they're going to show it to us. And I turn the page, and it's not the Savage Land, of course, because I'm no good at making these predictions. But it is Magneto. He's on, I'm guessing this is something I've heard about, called like Meteor M.
Asteroid M.
Asteroid M, okay. And
it might be. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what
it's called. But I don't know if that's what this is. This could be.
Well, it's just like an asteroid Magneto has in the sky that he like lives on, and
the problem with that is he's also lived on a rock in the sky, which was Avalon, and because this isn't in space, it makes me think it's not Asteroid M. But it could be. Who knows?
Okay.
It's a rock.
It's a big floating rock
that he's living on in the sky.
And it looks like there is at least what appears to be a small city, or at least like a small castle. I'm trying to decide how many people I think are on this rock.
I'll say this, John. There's some impressive architecture there.
The ability to control metal. You know,
Well, yeah, the ability to control metal doesn't make you Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, they had a world-class architect design it so he could move the metal in nice ways.
I wonder if Magneto's buildings, how structurally sound they are.
You know the shame
That's
about
kind
Magneto.
of an interesting thought, you know?
Yeah.
What?
It's a pity everyone remembers him for all the death and devastation that he caused and not for the beautiful buildings he gave the world.
That is true. He could have done so much good. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good hook for that message to all of our heroes. So Charles finishes his message and he says, "This is where you will find him. He does not fear your arrival. What he's done, this course of action, he's told me in the past, a kind of doomsday plan." Doomsday. It's like Doctor Doom, right? That's what the new Avengers movie is going to be about.
Bro, I bet Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in the next issue.
Dude, I am already calling what the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom is not going to be a full-on villain. He's going to be like joining the heroes, kind of like this. And that, do you think that they have they're going to adapt part of this and they're going to be like, "Oh, Robert Downey Jr., he's kind of an anti-hero now, right? He's Doctor Doom, but they're all on the same side against a greater foe."
Dude, at this point, I don't know. He's not Victor Von Doom. He might as well be Mickey Mouse.
I really
They're just
won't
making
like
up
that.
a character now.
I really don't like that. I think that he should just be the bad guy. Okay, I'll try and get us through the rest of this issue. A kind of doomsday plan, but it was purely theoretical. We never thought he'd act on it. Murder 6 billion people, every man, woman, and child on the planet. You have to stop him. You have to stop Magneto.
John, you know how you and your old friends all have your own theoretical doomsday plan to kill 6 billion people?
Definitely.
But you all just assume you're kidding?
I'm just joking about mine. But
yeah. How did Charles not raise these concerns sooner,
dude,
if he knew about this?
This is absolutely absurd. I had the exact same thought. I was like, if he seriously talked about this, you guys needed to murder him.
You tell an adult.
Definitely. Yeah, please, tell someone competent, Professor X. Tell Nick Fury. Nick Fury never... Well, they let him escape, I guess. I guess Fury had him for a while, actually. But... Okay, there's something else that's really bad about this. And I tried to... I don't like that Magneto's the villain of this. Okay? Because, one, I like Magneto. And I like it more when he's an anti-hero than when he's a villain. You know, I like to see him on our side. And that's because he brings up such valid points. And with his past, it especially is poignant. But in this Magneto, he's just like a whiny brat, kind of, who's like mad at his mom. You know, and it makes everything he's doing totally it just isn't good. Is that a hot take?
There's no weight behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can't even be like, Magneto's bringing up some valid points because he's been here before and he knows what happens when, fascism is in charge and blah, 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 blah. And he's been tortured and, but he hasn't really been. As far as we know, he just kind of escaped from his parents when he was a teenager and he's just been a little ever since.
He's just an angry dude.
He is. And this also brings up something else that I wish that we had talked about. I'm really upset with what they did to Magneto's mom. Okay? Because in every piece of literature or movie, at least I've ever seen Magneto's mom, she is a Jewish woman who is murdered by the Nazis. And that's a really different character than now she's like on the side of the oppressors and she's experimenting on people. And that just seems really like ugly to me. And I'm sure they didn't even think about it that much, right? They just wanted to give Magneto a different backstory, but
Which
they
is
should
the
have thought about that more.
Yeah.
You know?
There's two options and neither one looks good on them. Either they put no thought into it or they thought about it and they were like, yeah, that's a good change. That helps us.
Yeah. Okay, so we leave Charles's speech and Magneto's sitting on his throne and he's kind of slumped over. He is definitely looking very nonchalant. He does not seem concerned with everything that's happening. And he says, yes, bring them, Charles. Bring everyone so I can tell them myself. For what they've done, they will have to pay the ultimate price. And it's kind of fun. Mjolnir is sitting there next to him.
Yeah, he's stolen Thor's hammer. Would have been great if he could have worked in the word ultimatum. You know, hear me, Charles. This is my ultimatum.
This is an ultimatum.
Roll credits.
It sounds like he's not giving an ultimatum.
Yeah,
he's just doing it.
Yeah, that's true. This was my ultimatum.
Really fucked up. Okay, and it is not the Magneto that I know and love. I guess we sort of saw him do this in X-Men 97, but that was only because the Sentinels were literally killing all of the mutants, and they literally had no choice but to do that. I don't see a Magneto that's well characterized that is just okay with murdering so many innocent people. Maybe I haven't read enough X-Men comics and he actually does that like kind of regularly, but I don't like it.
Well characterized is the operative phrase here, because he's done some pretty dastardly stuff for like no reason before, but those aren't good comics, and that's not the version of Magneto anyone chooses to believe exists.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed when Charles when that aha moment hit where I was like, oh, it's going to be the Savage Land and he's talking about Magneto. I was like upset. I was like, oh man, Magneto's going to be the bad guy of this. That sucks. You know.
So I'll give you two.
I was hoping it would be like some sort of alien, some cool, like, I don't know. The Watchers are there. They're from space. I kind of thought we were going to get some sort of I don't know who I thought I was getting.
Nope. The enemy comes from within. It's another Earth person. But I'll give you two spoilers that I don't normally do, but just because it gives a little context to this issue. So the reason he's not in the Savage Land is what he did was he offset the Earth's poles. The magnetic poles.
I knew he did something like that. I knew he did something with the poles.
I think him being on the South Pole would have been bad for him personally.
Yeah,
and then
good call.
What he's alluding to, where he's like, for what they have done, they will pay the ultimate price. His kids just died in Ultimates 3. Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch were killed. And that was also the comic where it was...
That's when he always goes off the deep end in movies, is when they start killing his kids.
Right, but usually he doesn't care. I mean, the Scarlet Witch he would care about, but Pietro, he would not care. He's not a good dad. Say what you will about the Man. I love the Man. He's a bad father.
Well,
there's
Michael
no good fathers in
Fassbender
X-Men.
seems like a good father in Apocalypse.
Well, yeah, he loves Anya. That's like his one... Yeah. Anya and then kind of the Scarlet Witch, but he doesn't care about Polaris or Quicksilver.
So how does kids die?
Let me try and remember. I don't even think I finished Ultimates 3 because it was so bad. Because in the very first issue, they like explicitly say, well, the brother and sister are in a relationship. And Captain America's like, what? That's gross. And they're like, oh, Cap, you're just behind the times.
Wow.
And she gets like assassinated, and I don't know what happens to Quicksilver. It doesn't matter. But that's what Magneto is mad about, and now is everyone else's problem.
I just hate to see couples who are so in love get separated. Okay, what do we think of this? I thought boring start, and then I was pretty into it after that. So I'll go an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Nice books to read on a rainy day.
Okay. It's hard for me to separate. I don't like what happens for this whole story and the implications and the repercussions of it, right?
So are we supposed to believe that at this point, like, Johnny Storm is dead, Franklin Storm is dead? We heard the X-Men are dead, obviously, because Charles could like sense that. I mean, is Janet dead? She wasn't specifically found. Is Hawkeye dead? Right? Is every character that we do not specifically see be alive, are they dead? Is Daredevil dead? We saw him walk past the X-Men on the ground.
I'll say this. Some of the people you named are dead, and we don't know it yet.
Okay. As long as it's not Daredevil, that's fine.
I also hate to say this, but I think that was the Hulk, because we saw him then Hulk up and he was wearing those same clothes.
Oh, was it?
I don't think that was Daredevil.
Okay. Yeah.
He also wasn't blonde.
I'm sure that you are right. Well, he was kind of wearing like
Sunglasses.
He was wearing sunglasses. He was wearing sunglasses and like baggy clothes. He's trying to be inconspicuous.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely right though.
Okay, so like I'm saying, I'm trying to distance my problems with all of Ultimatum and just look at like execution of the idea. And I actually think this is a pretty successful issue in terms of executing the idea, because the whole point of it is just this sense of tragedy strikes suddenly, no one sees it coming, everyone's in whiplash, and the reader feels that too. I mean, from the one-page turn where everyone's having a good time to all of a sudden New York has never been more underwater.
Yeah.
It's, you know it's coming, or at least I did, and it's still strange to see because it looks like it comes out of absolutely nowhere, and in that sense you're experiencing what the characters are. So I think this was actually one of the better executed issues of Ultimatum, and I'm going to give it, what'd you give it, an 8 out of 10?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Okay. I also did put in my notes, so that scene with Professor X, that happens at like 5:30. Okay. So is
they
that
messed up the Latvarian time?
Well, no, I mean, I would say it's more unlikely. Charles should have known that before an hour later, right?
Oh yeah, he sat on that information.
Yeah, it shouldn't. That's what I'm really getting at. It makes sense that Dr. Doom was sitting there calling for servants for 2 hours, but Professor X should have sensed that the second it happened, right? So I don't know. Maybe there was like some sort of an error, or maybe even I don't know. Maybe that part of New York is Central Time, and I'm not. But I don't think so. I'm pretty sure all of New York is Eastern. Yeah.
Yeah, that's some malpractice by Charles. If Eric ever actually said that to him, like, hey, man, I could maybe reverse the polls. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? Like, that's blood on his hands.
Definitely. That's really bad. He's going to get the kicked out of him by Captain America. He's going to stomp his skull.
And he'll have deserved it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You thought he was just kidding. Bam!
I love it.
Okay, 8 and 7 out of 10. Pretty good. Next week, what are we doing? Issue 130 and Ultimatum 2?
Yep, that's exactly right.
So are these going to follow pretty like closely? I mean, I looked
side by side.
Yeah, because the cover of the next Spider-Man issue, he's like underwater, I think. Okay.
Yep, should be exciting. And I'll have you do the Ultimatum ones because I think that'll be fun.
Okay. I like it. Any other
All right.
Spider-Man stuff?
Nope.
What
So-
else do we have? I already talked about Mr. Beast.
You said all your stuff. Okay. Would you be cool with like nixing trivia this episode since we're like running long and it's late?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. But I will tell you what I was
Okay.
saying over text. So I've had this theory about how Endgame should have, or
Oh my
Infinity
gosh,
War should have
Infinity War.
ended.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone was tweeted today where they were like, no one knew that the Avengers were going to lose in Infinity War. It surprised us all. And I was like,
No, everybody knew. They announced it was a 2-part movie.
they announced it was a 2-part movie, and everyone who's ever read Infinity Gauntlet knew.
Yeah.
But here's how I thought it was going to happen. And when we were in theaters, they were so close to it. So this one change could have...
Is this
Yeah.
something you've thought since it came out?
I've thought this since before it came out. This is
Okay.
what I was hoping, like, the last scene was. And if they had done it this way, they would have also made Ant-Man 2 and Captain Marvel, like, big hits. So...
Yeah, those 2 movies that famously made like $1 billion. Yeah.
Did they?
Captain Marvel definitely made over $1 billion. Ant-Man 2 probably not.
Okay.
You know,
They
that's
would've been bigger.
that's the only Marvel movie that I have only seen once, and I fell asleep in the theater. I saw it at like the midnight showing, and I literally remember watching it just waiting for the post-credits scene. I was like, I don't care I just want to see how it affects Endgame or Infinity War or something.
Okay.
And yeah, okay, go on.
That goes back to what I'm going to say.
Yep.
Okay. Marvel should have hired me. Goddamn.
They
Okay.
should have.
Just end the movie as soon as he snaps. Just end it. Just make the screen white. Have it like pause for dramatic effect. People are waiting for it to come back. They're waiting for the fade back into the movie, and then it just slowly goes darker and darker, and then you roll credits and start playing some sad music. And for the first time in any of the Marvel movies, there's just no post-credit scene. Everyone would freak out. And then Ant-Man's coming out. Everyone has to go to Ant-Man to see the post-credit scene.
Everyone did that anyways.
Break
and Captain
up,
Marvel made $1 billion because everyone had to go and see it.
break up everything that happens in that movie after the snap to the post-credit scene for Ant-Man and the post-credit scene for Captain Marvel. And just get rid of the post-credit scene that was just her showing up and standing in front of the Avengers. You don't need that.
No, I don't like it.
You don't think it would have
Sorry.
been cool to leave the theater not knowing what happens when he snaps, sit for it for months, find out the people that died, like, slowly coming to you? It would have kept the conversation going.
It already did, Zach. They're like the biggest movies of all time.
I think I could have made them bigger.
I think probably. No, I don't think that would have made it better. I think it was, I don't know.
I heard people who
No.
got to see it before me were like, oh my God, the cliffhanger ending was unbelievable. I've never seen a movie leave me on the edge of my seat like that. And I'm like, oh, they're just going to end at the snap, aren't they?
I think it's good. I like seeing I like seeing all of my favorite heroes die.
Oh, good. Ultimatum's for you.
No, but it's also, I don't know, dude. You get to see which heroes survive. It's like, I don't know. I think it was pretty good, and you get to see Thanos sit on his little throne. That's nice.
The throne is good. If you're
A
going to do a
job well
post-credit
done.
scene, if you're going to do a post-credit scene for that movie, let it be the throne thing. But leave the heroes' fates ambiguous for a minute.
I don't know. I think if you're going to leave them ambiguous, you have to do it until Endgame comes out, because you can't put in a random Ant-Man 2 movie or a Captain Marvel movie if all of your best heroes survived, like not everyone's going to go and see those movies.
But those didn't take place between the movies, did they? They both took place before. So it's irrelevant.
Yeah, so how would they even show that anyways? You're the one that said
the post-credit scene can be from any time.
I don't think it's a good idea to put all of the Marvel superheroes dying in post-credit scenes from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel.
John, I remember when the post-credit scenes mattered.
Me too. Yeah. We used to be a real country.
Now what's that post where it's like Marvel fans will sit for the worst movie you've ever seen for 2 hours just to get to the end of the credits and see a guy walk through a door and say, "I'm Plunky Glarbo," and they clap.
Gosh, something else we've complained about before. But I was just watching The Winter Soldier the other day because it was randomly on cable when I was over at my parents'. And from 2011 to 2019, Captain America was in, I think, 8 different movies. 3 Captain America movies, 4 Avengers movies, and he was in Thor: The Dark World as a cameo. Just like showing up, right? Chris Evans showed up as Captain America. And so that means Tony Stark from, that time was in even more, right? Because he was in his 3 Iron Mans and Civil War, and he was in the Hulk and blah, blah, blah. And we haven't gotten new Captain America in one movie. We had him in a TV show in the last 6 years. They really just aren't doing a good enough job making you care about these characters. Like we said it before, but Shang-Chi's been in one movie and they want him to be one of the main guys. Yeah. How can they expect that to happen? These guys were pumping out one movie appearance a year for 8 years. It's no wonder we all fell in love with the characters.
Yeah, they've spread the stuff too thin. I'm not I don't hate anyone that's in the lineup right now. If you gave me a ton of She-Hulk content and it was good,
I was just thinking the same thing.
I'd be standing She-Hulk or Shang-Chi or whoever. I don't have anything against any of them. We just don't see them that much.
Yeah, they need to make someone make us invested in them a little bit,
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the stories have to be good.
Yes. I read this really good what if where Tony Stark and Doctor Doom switch bodies, and oh man, it just sounds awesome. Okay, go on. What were you gonna say?
I'm gonna
bring that what if up every single episode until the movie comes out or this podcast ends.
I almost would rather them put out something weird and of the quality of Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, I was just thinking you like that one
every year rather than waiting 3 years for just a painfully average Spider-Man movie.
Dude, you think of the quality that they were pumping out. I mean, they had an Iron Man they had a new movie every year, and it was Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, another Captain America, Avengers something. I mean, what a time to be alive.
Yeah. Do you remember when Iron Man 2 and Thor 2 were seen as the black sheep of the franchise?
I remember Thor 2 is still, if I think of the worst ones, it's probably Ant-Man and the Wasp 2, but after that it's probably Thor 2.
It might be because of Natalie Portman, but I don't hate Thor 2.
They put my favorite doctor before Peter Capaldi, Christopher Eccleston, in the leading villain role and covered him up with makeup and gave him no talking lines to where you could even he just didn't get to chew any scenery at all. It made me so upset. I was psyched for that movie because I was such a big Christopher Eccleston fan. And literally I was I can't even tell it's him. This is terrible.
If I had a nickel for every time someone's had that criticism about the leading villain in a Thor movie.
Who else is it?
Christian Bale. as Gore the Godslayer.
You can tell that's Christian Bale, though. That's way more Christian
Can you?
Bale. I mean, way more than telling it's Christopher Eccleston.
Dude, I love Christian Bale, and sometimes I cannot tell that things are Christian Bale. That
Maybe I'll
movie
have
where
to-
he
maybe I'll
plays
have to
Dick
rewatch
Cheney.
that. Oh, yeah.
Dude, Christian Bale can just be a chameleon.
He can. He can. There's some funny tweet where he's like, okay, you want me to do this movie? And how much weight do I need to lose or gain?
I had like the most serious argument with my friends one time about, this wasn't long ago either, about if Christian Bale is like a good actor or if people just know him for Batman. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If those Batman movies never existed, this man would still be like one of the most respected male leads in Hollywood.
Yeah. And your buddy was disagreeing?
Yes. They were like, people only know him for Batman. And I'm like, you don't watch movies.
Yeah.
I dare say
I stand Christian
American
Bale.
Psycho might be a more iconic role for him than Batman.
I wonder what his most iconic role is. You know what? This is just a Christian Bale fan podcast now, which is fine. But he's awesome in The Big Short also, and that's a good movie.
Yeah, it's funny. He's not like all the other hedge fund investors. He's the cool one that listens to metal.
He's one of the good billionaires. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be like him.
Okay, so we came in praising Mr. Beast, and we're going out praising hedge funds. So much for our
Michael Burry.
Yeah,
that's who he plays.
Okay, we're skipping trivia today.
Yeah, dude, it's 10:30 and I got work in the morning.
You have a jam of the week?
Ooh, I actually do. And you know what it's got to do with?
What?
Take a wild guess.
Spider-Man?
So this is from this is a song from the end of Evangelion.
Oh, okay.
It's called, so this is kind of funny, John. It's a show and then movie that was originally in Japanese, right?
Okay.
But then naturally they put a banger of an English language song in it, right?
Okay.
But that's not complicated enough. So the song has a German title.
Okay.
It's an English song with a German title in a Japanese language movie.
Love it.
Komm Susser Todd. And it's like...
What's it mean?
That's a good question.
How have you not ever looked this up? How are you about to...
I just watched this movie this week.
Song and that title is in a foreign language, and you didn't Google what it meant?
It means come sweet death.
Okay.
And that's fitting because if you're not paying attention to the lyrics, it sounds just like a sweet, fun earworm of a pop song. And then you listen to it and you're like, my God, that's the bleakest thing I've ever heard. And it happens during like the trippiest scene ever too.
Okay, who's this by?
I don't know. The soundtrack of End of Evangelion.
Evangelion. Okay. Well, I have a jam of the week too. It's called Slumlord by Bomb the Music Industry, and it's a jam.
Jeff Rosenstock.
It's a total jam.
We've talked about Bomb the Music Industry before, right?
I think my jam of the week from a couple months ago was I Don't Love You Anymore, which is also a total jam.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of college. Slumlord.
Nice.
All right.
Everything Jeff Rosenstock touches is pretty good.
Is it? Okay. Is that the lead singer of Bomb the Music Industry?
Yeah.
Love it. If they ever come, Zach. Well,
they're broken up.
Well,
but Jeff Rosenstock was just in town not long ago.
Maybe you could will that back into existence. I know you've had some luck doing that recently.
You know what? I bet a lot of people would thank me for that.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you to Ian Hickey for the music and Alyssa Seaman for our artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. You can find us, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. Or you can come and chat with us and leave us a message on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com and find us on YouTube, First Read Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast. See you next week.
See ya.